not exactly sure when the Scottish Rite started. In fact, you don't have to be Scottish. They don't really come from Scotland. We think they come from old French degrees that were based on some things from Ecossaise lodges, which was the French word for Scottish. So we think Scottish Freemasons in Paris probably started doing these degrees early on. We don't even know.
The term infantry, meaning foot soldiers, originated with the Spanish. It was first applied to the military force employed by an infante, or young prince of Spain, to rescue his father from the Moors. In regards to the degrees that the French hold, they was acquired during the Christian conquest against the Moorish Empire, whom was the custodians of the Egyptian ancient mystery systems. In the east of the lodge over the master, enclosed in a triangle, is the Hebrew letter Yod, which is the 7. In the English and American lodges, the letter G is substituted for this. We have already put on record in previous demonstrations Robert the Bruce, the Christian Scottish Kenneth the Moor can cut off 3 Moors' heads. The Moors are known for wearing a fez with a tassel. And when you look at the kilt of the Scottish, they have a pouch and it has 3 tassels. So when they're speaking of cutting off the Moors' heads, they're symbolizing the 3 tassels of the fezes. They say that it was one that wrapped around and it made 2 and then the one in the middle. No, they're speaking of cutting off the 3 Moors' heads. It's on their coat of arms. We've already went over that as well. As well with the Irish, the 3-leaf clover. We went over the reading about the serpent that was tied, and every Monday he would say, "It's a long Monday, Patrick," and all of that, brothers. So the Irish and the Scottish. The Irish is really England. The Scottish is really the French. That's why this is the Cornish temple over here, because we stay with the Kernal, the horned one, staying back with the Moors, whether you want to call it the dog star, the Venus, the blazing star, the Magi who followed the star. All of that is the 5-point star, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, ephemeris, which guides you by the light of illumination that the Moors brought us and brought us out of darkness into marvelous light. In regards to the Scottish, their nationality stone sits on the throne, literally under the throne of England. We went over that as well. Their nationality stone lays under the England throne. Them saying you don't have to be Scottish to be in the Scottish Rite. It used to be you had to be of the bloodline. And then they created the Job's daughters where you had to have a vouch and an oath and all of that. They switched up everything. Still, after I seen this infantry of the Scottish, I know that they was against the Moors. So I want nothing to do with that. Everything that they got was from the Moors, and then they flipped it up. Like you seen, it was substituted the G because they want their God, which is in the Holy Bible. Albert Pike specifically states that the Christian Bible is used for every perpetration against man. But in regards to Moses going up on Mount Sinai, we went over that in the last demonstration. The Yod is also known as the hermit who stands on the snowy peak with the pinnacle of wisdom. They speak of Moses' hair turning white, which was the illumination of him being wise. I see that Albert Pike had the 3 crosses, That can stand for belief, faith, fruition, or the triune principles of the Yod. But also it stands for what the Pope wears, as far as him being the pontiff or the Pope of the Scottish Rite. Morals and Dogma that he published puts out a lot of truth. So in regards to me thinking that he was trying to usurp people through their ignorance, I don't believe that, as you would say, believe, because I don't like using belief, because like I spoke of, belief, faith, and fruition. I do have the manuscripts and statements of Albert Pike saying that he did not have any communication with the Grand Orient of France. He also speaks of a bad experience with the Orient of France with King Kalakaua. He went up there and they didn't show him any kind of respect. He let them know we even had one of our own brothers next to the Grand Orient of France, and the situation didn't go well. In the last years of Albert Pike, they claimed that he sent letters to Grand Orient of France, and I went over and read them. Also, Madame Blavatsky, Albert Pike, and King Kalakaua all passed within 45 to 50 days of each other, and that's when the Scottish chieftain MacLean started being the so-called army head of the Moorish Empire. And they had the Moorish mission with England, which is in disguise. So I feel it was a coup d'etat with the Europeans behind the Moorish throne, because they did the coup de force, but they said it don't work because people watch people getting killed and then they start having a conscience. So then they do a coup d'etat, which they take over the throne. I've already compiled enough evidence in regards to the Scottish and the Irish, let alone letting people who are not of the Scottish nationality into the Scottish Rite will lead to infiltration. You know, Scottish is a nationality, it's a birthright. Somebody can't come into the Scottish birthright if they're not of Scottish bloodline. That's dishonoring your foremothers and forefathers. If this has to do with the pinnacle of wisdom, you must first know thyself. And if you are not identifying what your ancestors identified with, then you're just floating in the water, the cares of the world. I leave you in love and peace. Islam, Islam, Islam. Shalom, shalom, shalom.